Welcome to Kaleidoscope Let's Talk. On Let's Talk today, we thought we'd clock in with a member of the diaspora, from Australia in fact, to find out why Sri Lankans overseas are so interested in what happens in Sri Lankan elections and what, if any, are their perceptions of what happens in this country. He was the first non-UK or Irish to be elected global president of SEMA, a global trainer and a consultant, and is a regular visitor to Sri Lanka and not a dual citizen. Aubrey Joachim is on the show today and he joins us from Sydney, Australia. Aubrey, as we move up to a very important election that comes at a very challenging point, why do you state that politicians must think global and act local?
Politicians must recognize that whatever they say and do sends global ripples, right? More than at any time in the past, Sri Lanka has global dependency because of its financial and economic situation. In the context of my recent article, I was specifically referring to the global Lankan diaspora and the need for police to consider their wider citizenry when acting at a local level, because their actions can have profound impact on such diaspora now or in the future.
Aubrey, what should voters consider before putting that cross on the ballot paper?
They must think beyond the temporary economic calm that has prevailed since the Aragalaya, which was a defining moment in the political history of the country, and really consider the pressing issues. Voter behavior is influenced by a number of factors: long-term, medium-term, short-term. And within each of these factors, there are influences such as economic, socio-economic, governance, quality of candidates, etc. Each voter must have in their own mind a frame of reference, such as who will be the best at managing the economy, right? Who will be looking at tackling corruption and adhering to the rule of law. Consider the candidate characteristics and background, right? Is the person fit to govern? Does the person represent the wider demography? And then prioritize the above in the context of what is best for each of them and for the country as a whole. Do not be biased and do not be influenced by the misinformation and puffery. Get the facts.
You say get the facts. In an educated community, why is it easy for voters to get fooled by false promises and those that can never really become reality?
This is not the case in Sri Lanka alone. See what is happening in the US. But referring specifically to Sri Lanka, my view is that there are two reasons. Firstly, from a young age, our Asian cultures teach us not to question parents, superiors, bosses, etc. Merely take for granted what they're telling you, right? This mindset continues even into their adult political life, especially when they are insecure. The second point is that they have short memories and are influenced by the most recent events. Therefore, coming close to election time, politicians provide inducements. Voters also do not think deeply. This time, most are influenced with the gas and petrol queues that have disappeared. They do not recognize that these are due to short-term fixes.
So, how do we make voters understand the importance of making informed decisions?
A country is like a corporation. In fact, it is the highest level corporation in the land, right? The citizens are stakeholders. The politicians' promises, which take the form of their manifestos, are akin to an organization's prospectus or strategic plan. Now, when one looks at investing in an organization and its management team, you look at the initiatives proposed and the accompanying financial plan, which demonstrates if the required resources are available to deliver those promised outcomes. The resources are not merely financial, but also capacities, human resource competences, etc. If such an exercise is done on the back, done on the back of an envelope, it will be clear if such promises can be delivered or not, right? I would urge the various parties who have come up with their very glossy and enticing manifestos to put together accompanying resource plans. The voters should demand for this in order to make their informed decisions. In Australia, leading up to an election, the various political parties cost their manifestos and which are even subject to audit scrutiny. That's how much, people should know what's happening.
For those who have made another country their home, dual citizens they may be, but nevertheless living most of their lives out of Sri Lanka, is it fair that they have an opinion on the future leaders of this country, given that it's not going to impact them anyway?
If you understand, the reason for them having a dual citizenship is because they have some legitimate connection to Sri Lanka beyond just having been born there, right? They may have business interests, property, close family, or even come back at some point. Now, I know of some who had lived in Australia for decades and have now come back bringing their wealth along with them, right? So we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Thus, it is very important for such dual citizens to have a say in the future political outcomes and that can have an impact on them, right? Besides, don't forget, dual citizens pay a fair penny for the privilege. And one of the privileges of citizenship is being able to vote.
What is the role the diaspora should and can play in the country without just being active only during elections?
Most with dual citizenship engage with Sri Lanka regularly. They visit friends and relatives. Like I said, they may be having businesses that they run out of there, actually giving economic benefit to the country. Send monetary support. I know people who engage on a daily basis for some reason or another. In fact, we are just a Zoom call away from anything that's happening there. Even those who have relinquished Sri Lankan citizenship are somehow involved. So in Australia, just as in other locations where there are Sri Lankans, almost every month there are various fundraising efforts for their old schools, for poor kids, supporting various charities, etc. So it's unfair to think that the diaspora are only active during elections. On another level, many Sri Lankans are doing exceptionally well professionally, having developed their skills, competencies in their adopted countries, and can give back to Sri Lanka. Diaspora can also invest in Sri Lanka. So there are many reasons and opportunities for diaspora to get involved, and I certainly think they should.
Sri Lanka is an island. We keep harping on our history and our culture, and that's election rhetoric as well. Do you think these aspects are important in the larger scheme of things, or are we simply just acting like frogs in a well?
Today, more than at any time in the past, Sri Lanka is so globally interconnected, right? And must react and respond to global events. Sri Lanka was in the long past a regional leader in many contexts: agriculture, hydraulic engineering, and even civil constructions. Just a few days ago, I was looking at something on Sigiriya, and one would be astounded. That status was lost centuries ago. Basking the glory of history will not help at this point in time. The country and its people must move on. If not, they will be frogs in a well for a long, long time.
So, the preferential system of voting is a very complicated process, but does this work, especially for a country like ours?
So, preferential voting can work in a very mature and informed electorate. I'm not sure the majority of voters in Sri Lanka understand the concept for a start. A lot of education has to be put in place, right? Further to that, voters must have a good understanding of the pros and cons of multiple candidates, right? What would be the most likely to happen is that those who are hardcore supporters of a candidate will only vote for that favorite, right? Those who have no particular hardcore favorite will cast their preference vote on flimsy reasoning, not realizing that they could influence an unintended final outcome.
What is your advice to voters?
So the outcome of this election will be a game changer for the country and therefore for every Sri Lankan for decades to come, right? Do not be influenced by emotion or what has happened in the past. Consider the future, right? Carefully consider what each of the parties are offering. And most importantly, assess if the outcomes can be delivered like we talked about earlier. Do not be influenced by misinformation and fake news. Keep an open mind until you get to the ballot box. Einstein famously defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if you vote as you have always voted, do not expect something different to be delivered by the leaders you vote for. So don't be insane.
Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please subscribe, follow us, and like us for more.